even though doctors said to them, yes, we think this was the vaccine that caused this, they didn't write it in their medical notes. There's an element of fear there.
There's a perception, or that they perceive, that people were nevertheless coerced, publicly or privately, into taking vaccines.
So yes, we feel that the yellow card is not fit for purpose. Most of them come back the first time round as rejected, and some of the reasons are utterly ridiculous, to be honest.
I was quite particularly interested in you talked about the research in Germany about both vaccine injury and long COVID.
This week at the UK COVID-19 inquiry, they covered Module 4, Vaccines and Therapeutics. Ruth O'Rafferty gave powerful and emotive testimony on behalf of her Scottish Vaccine Injury Group, where she discussed in detail the many concerns of her group around the safety and the effectiveness of the COVID-19 vaccines.
Yes, my name is Ruth O'Rafferty.
Thank you very much. I'd like to start your evidence, please, Mrs. O'Rafferty, by asking you to tell us something about the Scottish Vaccine Injury Group, whom you represent today, to provide tailored support for Scottish people who had suffered an adverse reaction to any of the COVID-19 vaccines. Is that right?
That's correct.
Within your group, do we presume, therefore, that there are people who suffered injury, as well as those who, worse, suffered bereavement following vaccination?
Yes, we have both. The majority suffered vaccine injury.
Can you give, please, the inquiry some idea of the size of the Scottish Vaccine Injury Group? How many interests, or how many people are you representing? And
Currently just approaching 750 people.
There are many people who doubt whether, in fact, the vaccines cause injury. And, of course, it's a very strongly held view on the part of our members that they have, to a large extent, been ignored.
Yes.
Is that the nub of this?
Yes. There's been a lot of censorship. In fact, Mark Zuckerman's openly talked about how Facebook removed anything related to vaccine injury. So what we experience when we go into medical appointments are medical professionals who've not seen evidence of vaccine injury in social media or the mainstream media. So we're actually met often with quite a lot of disbelief. And actually, we did a survey in our group to find out how doctors seem to feel about vaccine injury. And 46% of them said, or the 46% of the respondents said, that even though doctors said to them, yes, we think this was the vaccine that caused this, they didn't write it in their medical notes. There's an element of fear there that if you speak out against the vaccines, you're going against the societal or cultural expectations that the vaccines are wonderful.
All right. You have, as you set out at G, also sought to campaign for specialist-funded research and specialist centres so that your members can receive the treatment for the injuries which they believe they've suffered from vaccines.
Yes.
Right.
And in fact, Germany, there are specific units that research vaccine injury and long COVID, both, because there is an overlap in symptoms. And we feel that because these were novel technologies that we used for the vaccines, there will be side effects that maybe will be unexpected. And we're very surprised, actually, that nobody has come to us and said, well, look, you are this wonderful research opportunity that we have to find out what's happening as a result of the vaccines.
One of the main concerns held by our members is of course, the integrity of the regulatory system in the United Kingdom, the degree of scrutiny that was brought to bear on the authorization of vaccines, and whether or not the safety processes were properly operated, and in particular, whether they were designed and operated in a way that would bring safety-related concerns, side effects to light. Is that a fair summary of that particular topic?
Yes.
Do your members have particular concerns about the administrative or legal routes by which the vaccines were authorised? You've referred in the statements to the authorisation process under Regulation 174 of the regulations to which I referred yesterday.
The MHRA and the government faced a very significant challenge, and they put in place some updated regulations to allow them to authorise vaccines under very fast processes.
All right, we're in danger of veering off already.
Okay. So that provides some context
Right.
for what I'm just about to say.
Please continue.
So a normal process when a new medication is brought out is that they'll make a mock-up of a medication or a vaccine for a clinical trial. And then once it's been authorised, they will then upscale and produce a product that can be mass-produced. Because you can't, the way something's made for a clinical trial, you can't mass-produce it. These particular vaccines are biologics.
Shall I put it another way?
Yes, please.
Your fellow members feel that they sacrifice safety at the expense to gain the speed?
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
So it's the rolling review issue. It's the overall speed by which authorisation was granted and the degree to which they examined it.
No, we understand the rolling review allowed them to see things a lot sooner, so they were able to scrutinise things much more quickly than they would normally, and we don't have a problem with that. What we have a problem with is the upscaled product. Because these are biologics, and because the process defines the product, if you change any little thing in the manufacture of a biologic, the temperature, the ingredients, where it's made, you can get a different product. And there was concerns raised that whether the upscaled product was comparable to the clinical trial product.
As I've said, the two processes, the one
That's
that
right.
underpinned the clinical research and the one that underpinned the at-scale manufacturing.
Correct.
All right. I think we're clear.
These are mRNA vaccines have never before been authorised for use in the public. And because they were brought out in such a massive scale, our concerns are that there wasn't enough vigilance, that doctors were not aware. For example, we had somebody who ended up in hospital paralysed for months. And we discovered that she had the same diagnosis as a condition that appeared in the AstraZeneca trial. Had her doctors known that had happened during the AstraZeneca trial, the trial was actually paused.
Right.
The doctors actually understood this was a brand new technology. If they had understood the conditions that had arisen during the clinical trials or not, because had they known, they may have been better prepared to diagnose more quickly,
right.
And then those conditions wouldn't have advanced to the stage they did where there's irreparable damage.
Or they would have been treated perhaps in a different way.
Yes.
Right. So were you and are you concerned about the whole patient information leaflet process, whether or not it gave the public enough information, whether or not they were updated in sufficient time when new data and new understanding came to light, whether or not people, when they received their vaccines, understood that there was a patient information leaflet available which might or might not have the right degree of data? Is that the broad area?
A lot of our members were not given a leaflet until after they'd received their vaccination, which means they didn't really have informed consent. They didn't know what they were consenting to. And the leaflets really, we now know the level of damage and the level and breadth of injury that can result.
Well,
and these are not listed in the leaflet.
Right. So your general position is that you believe that there was more injury, more damage, more harm done than was being indicated by the patient and public-facing leaflets and information, both from the MHRA, from the government, and from these public information documents.
Yes, and the doctors rely on the Green Book, for example, and that only mentions myocarditis, thrombosis, and Guillain-Barré syndrome, really. And we have so many more other undoubted vaccine reactions.
That they feel that there's a perception, or that they perceive that people were nevertheless coerced, publicly or privately, into taking vaccines. So is the heart of the concern expressed on this topic whether or not the state, the government, were fair and open in describing the benefits and the risks so that people could make a decision individually for themselves without feeling they were under a degree of coercion?
The published message was you would take the vaccine to save everyone else, that you were selfish not to, you were responsible not to. And we did have lots of people in our group who were in the medical profession who were coerced. We even had somebody who had emails distributed around their workplace naming and shaming people who hadn't yet had their vaccine.
All right, you understand, of course, that we can't delve into individual cases.
No.
But the overarching point is you're concerned about why it was that some people felt they were being coerced or they were under pressure, and whether or not they were given the right information to be able to make a decision free from coercion.
Yes.
That's the heart of it. All right. The yellow card reporting scheme is obviously a vital part of the safety structures in the United Kingdom. Is that a general topic about which your members have expressed a great deal of concern? In essence, whether or not it properly allowed people to record, to register with the government and the authorities adverse effects which they believe they'd encountered, and also whether or not, going the other route, the yellow card scheme and the MHRA kept people properly informed about the position. Is that the heart of the concern?
A lot of people have never heard of the yellow card when they join the group, to be honest. And then we have people who haven't been able to access the yellow card again, they can't find it. The yellow card scheme is a passive reporting scheme, as you know, so it's reliant on people knowing about it. And the government does, by their own admission, say between 1% and 10% of people actually report to the yellow card.
And it's obviously a scheme whereby members of the public and medics can report. And so your position is that people weren't made properly aware of the availability of the yellow card system to allow them to report.
Yes, although it does say about the yellow card in leaflets. But our experience is that doctors were not reporting to the yellow card, even though they said to us that they felt that the vaccine was responsible. And in fact, the Green Book says that all doctors should, even if they're not sure, they should report it to yellow card, and then MHRA will make the decision whether or not there was a causation there or not. So yes, we feel that the yellow card is not fit for purpose. I know that I asked for a copy of my yellow card, and they put that a lot of my symptoms had been resolved when they haven't. So I don't know where they got that information from.
And finally, another scheme, no less important, but it's one that appears to be of huge concern and worry to members in your group and other groups, I should say, is the vaccine damage payment scheme.
Yes.
Has it been the experience of your members that where they've made applications under the scheme, that they've simply not been dealt with sufficiently speedily or at all, or got a positive response? And no doubt you would argue that the actual terms of the scheme, the preconditions for an award, and it's not a compensatory award, but for an award, are overly onerous and impossible in practice to meet.
Yes. I mean, how can you prove you're 60% disabled when your condition fluctuates from day to day? It's actually the response that I get from group members, overwhelming responses. It's a very traumatic experience to go through. Because a lot of them, I mean, I'm having quite, I'm losing my words here, but a lot of us are neurologically impacted. So we find it difficult to communicate. And we have some people who are so badly injured that they can't actually write. So they're trying to get medical records from here, there, and everywhere, collate it all, and they have to prove causation. I mean, how can a normal layperson do that? It's very traumatic. And then when the results come back, and a lot of them, most of them come back the first time round as rejected, and some of the reasons are utterly ridiculous, to be honest.
Thank you very much, Mrs. O'Rafferty. If I may say so, you've been a very fine advocate, despite your own words, in the interest of your members. But
the thing I was quite particularly interested in was you talked about the research in Germany about both vaccine injury and long COVID. But I was interested because a lot of the concerns that your members have echo the concerns that long COVID sufferers have. Yeah. Recognition, of course, being one of the primary ones, and then the kind of support and treatment that you need. So I was quite interested to hear you talk about that research. Anyway, thank you very much indeed for your help. I'm really grateful to you.
Within the testimony, Ruth O'Rafferty discussed the patient information leaflets that were handed out during the vaccination process. Attached here is copies of the AstraZeneca patient information leaflet that I received at my vaccine appointment in May 2021. Now, this was after the MHRA had admitted to possible links between the COVID AstraZeneca vaccine and fatal blood clots, which they announced in April 2021 and advised that the under 40s should not take the vaccine. On the day of my appointment, I was aged 40 and therefore deemed an acceptable risk to take the AstraZeneca vaccine. It's interesting to note, however, that even though my vaccination postdated the MHRA statement, my patient information leaflet was dated February 2021, which mean that they hadn't included the adverse risk events of blood clots 3 months after the event, and 3 months after the MHRA had already confirmed their presence. On the day, I declined my JAG. Thanks for listening, guys, and as always, please share this video with your friends and family.